Welcome to Inclusivity Unlocked, the podcast that's all about inclusion and diversity, brought to you by the Asociatia Explorator. And we're chatting with our guests from our studio in Craiova, and together we will make sure that tricky isms and complex terms from the world of inclusion become a part of your everyday life. And now it's time to unlock. Today in our podcast studio is Madalina, coordinator of the Asociatia Explorator, Alin, the youth worker within the Asociatia ANDCTR, and Mirela, mentor of our volunteers, and also me, Asya, volunteer of the Asociatia Explorator. And first of all, I wanted to dive a little bit into the history of the association with Madalina, the coordinator. And I'm curious about how Asociatia came to be and how it became a part of Central Voluntariat pentru Comunitate, and what's the theme of the center?
So the idea of Explorator started back in 2007 when I was in university. Back then Romania didn't enter yet European Union, and still it was incredibly hard and expensive to travel. One, because of money, and second of all, because the visa procedures. So I had the chance through one of my roommates in the dormitories to travel to an Erasmus project in Tbilisi, Georgia. I had no idea what was that, and it sounded crazy that somebody will pay me to go somewhere. And after speaking with my parents and making sure that I have the money, just in case I will not receive them, because everybody was sure that we will not receive the money back, I went with a friend of mine. I experienced a mobility, and it opened a whole new concept. I came back, I spoke with 3 other friends of mine, and they said, okay, we need to do this. We need to do this for youngsters around us. So one took the burden of learning what an association means, what an NGO, how you can open it and stuff like that. Another found a leaflet in the university about the National Agency of Romania having a writing of projects workshop. So we started kind of afraid, but so determined that we wanted to travel and see the world for free. But not only in the sense of traveling for visiting purpose, but to meet other youngsters. For us was something incredible. Romania back then, and even now, was quite homogeneous. You didn't had the chance to meet a lot of youngsters. So we developed the association that was brought to life in March 2008. And that year we had our first project, the Youth Mobility, financed by the Erasmus Plus, back then Youth in Action project, with partners that now think of it was a bit crazy. We just launched a call for partners via Yahoo groups. Back then it was a thing. We were speaking on Yahoo Messenger from Syria, Italy, and Poland.
And the team changed with years. So like at first it was a very small group, you and your friend from university, and nowadays it's bigger.
Yes, and first of all, back then all of us were studying in Bucharest, and we developed the activities here, let's say, in our free time. Years passed, and of course we started actually doing projects with a team, understanding what project management meant, understanding what sustainability after one project. So yeah, our team grew, and here we are today, 3 association, gracefully having a partnership with Casa de Cultura Studenților, offering for all the Oltenia region opportunities for youngsters.
And at first you done only like short term, like volunteering, or it was just youth exchange? And now you have much more varieties of actions. Am I correct here?
Yes. When we started, and even now, I don't think that national grants were a thing back then, and even now the funding is quite limited. So we focused on European financing. We started with youth mobility because back then we could not support ourselves from this type of projects. When I started, and even the first 5 or 6 years, I never thought that this will become actually my profession. I was working and doing this like something for my soul, like a volunteering. For the first 8 years of the association, most of us did this just as a volunteering project. Our reward was just being able to develop both personally and professionally through the mobilities that we take part. And then in 2014 we took our accreditation, our quality label, to host international volunteers. And from there we grew and we escalated to what we have here today.
And I wanted to address all of you, asking what sparked the idea for creating Central Voluntariat pentru Comunitate based on the needs you observe among young people in Craiova specifically.
Thank you, Asya. The drive behind this volunteering center is the need of the youngsters in our community to have a proper environment where they can meet and be supported in following your dreams. In finding the answer of their question, in building sustainable social and professional networking.
The main idea is to invite young people here to communicate with each other, and also you invite volunteers from abroad, so it's also important to make it an international experience, right?
Yes, but first of all, we want to invite the youngster to create some ideas for the local, for our region. After that, involve for the national and of course international project idea, something like that.
But what change would you like to see in the region itself? What to invite young people for?
I think the idea that we are all here, it's a good example that I want and I hope that around Romania people will take and understand, because the NGO sector that I include myself in for a long time had this attitude of all the time fighting without actually understanding that local partnership can help you grow. For example, our association grew immensely once they understood that we can partner with other organizations in order to sustain ourselves, also to involve more professionals in the field, because you cannot ensure quality only through volunteering, and also establish a dialogue with public institutions. Here, due to the director of Casa de Cultura Studenților, we found a proper environment. We found specialists. Mirela, it's one here, and then we have a video that helps us with all the logistics. So without this local partnership, you cannot grow. So the Center Volunteering for Community, the driving idea, of course, is youth, but youth supported through the local stakeholders. Because a community, you cannot dissociate youngsters from the community. The idea is for them to thrive with the environment that surrounds them.
I want to thank Madalina. I was in my young part of life as a participant. I learned a lot. I travel, and my job is an actress, so I learn a lot, and I learn about other countries, other culture, and in that moment I saw the possibility to make a change in our community. So was a step to grow, to learn more and to explore. And this is a great opportunity for young people to develop their ideas, to grow, to learn, to travel, to discover, and to find the way to make it happen. They are what they are dreaming. I think this kind of association, NGOs, this part of community, help a lot the young people to develop, to have support, to have the resources, and to make it count in their space. and to apply their ideas and to create something great in their community.
I want to link with what Mirela said because it's very important. Basically, what Explorator, because it's an association focused on inclusion. The idea is to do projects for and with young people, no matter their background, focusing especially on empowering vulnerable youngsters with the idea that everybody can be an active citizen. Like Mirela gave her own example, like I gave mine, and Alin is here the best example of Explorator product, let's say, that he started from volunteering and he combined his profession, growing both personally and professionally, in order to understand that a good community has their citizens, each person involved in different aspects. Like in the case, I can be an actress, but still understand that I need to connect, to travel, to develop certain areas in my life in order to add value in my profession, but also to the people around me if I want the message of solidarity and inclusion to be heard.
But at the same time, Voluntariat pentru Comunitate is part of European Solidarity Corps. And we always talk about the philosophy of European Solidarity Corps, and I wanted to ask how the center allies with this philosophy.
Volunteering Center for the Community, we implement projects that align with this principle of the European Solidarity Corps. Are they following inclusion and diversity, environmental protection, digital transformation, and last but not least, participation in the democratic processes through the civic involvement. All young people ready to make a change have a user-friendly space where they can train and they apply everything. With us, of course.
The international volunteers, their most important value here is coming with a different perspective. Because most of the time we are lost in our own way of thinking, our own cultural stereotypes that we don't question very often. And it doesn't stem from ill intention. Most of the time, the stereotypes, the barriers, all the prejudice that help people become integrated comes from not questioning. So when somebody else from a different culture, from a different brings a different perspective, it helps the community to grow, to understand, to have a different point of view. So basically the aim of Explorator in European Solidarity Corps is to bring awareness of how can diversity be the center force for inclusion.
Is it a common thing in Romania that people try to volunteer and be somehow connected with NGOs, or your stories of going to volunteering and doing your own job at the same time is something more extraordinary than usual?
My parents are always asking me if I go to play or to you go to work, you have a good time and enjoy and everything is relaxed and you don't have a real job, like it's a job. But yeah, most of the people are still thinking that it's not a serious job. But working in NGO, doing projects, traveling, discover, doing this kind of workshop or mentoring, a group of volunteering, it's still getting tough, and in Romania it's not so easy. We try, we step by step, we grow, and we demonstrate that it's a real thing and it's a good thing for young people all over the world.
I think for a long time, now less and less, but for a long time, because we come from the communist mentality, when you were defined, your value was your work. what you could give to the society, but your role was already assigned. So you didn't have the much option to choose. And then after the communist period collapsed, most of the parents saw that the values were the ones from Hollywood, how much money, how respectable your profession was. Of course, the trends were changing when it comes to professions. And also for a long time, volunteering was considering only the one of humanitarian aid. The programs that the Red Cross, for example, had. You had a flooding in a village, people went there like nurses to volunteer their work, or construction buildings, stuff like that. Even today when we discuss with youngsters, they understand the concept of volunteering, but then we need to have a different discussion with their families, even if they are my age, for example, the parents of our local volunteers. Considering that they are not volunteering, like they are, I don't know, developing a flash mob, or they are going to a meeting with the local council, and I'm like, yeah, but they are still volunteering their time, they are still giving their input, their feedback. That's also a form of volunteering. We hope that we will be in a community where humanitarian aid is decreasing, because the idea of a democratic European society is by this active involvement we will identify the problems before they end up in a humanitarian crisis. So slowly, I think the youngsters nowadays, they understand the concept, but still the pushback from the previous generation of what volunteering means, it's a struggle.
I noticed your different approaches with communicating with young people. What changes have you noticed with time by working with young people? Maybe some features in behavior, or maybe they became more open-minded to volunteering and it's easier to involve those into the community.
I think we grow slowly, step by step, but the generation are changing in a good way, and the involvement of the participants are high level, so we are grateful for that, and hope to see more and more young people involved in our project, and not only even if you want to have a job but you don't know for sure what is your tools, or you don't have it already, or you don't know exactly what you want to do in your life, you can do volunteering in NGOs to see what you like more, or maybe you can discover something that you didn't know in that moment. So,
as for international volunteer, for me actually it was really great to hear that I came up with ideas and try to make it come true in different ways. It could be workshop, it could be podcast, some interesting topic that interests me, not others. And it's really one of the best parts of the volunteering and the journey itself. Of course, you have to understand what goals you want to achieve during that period, because time goes very fast.
I think for me, because I do this for quite a while, the most important change that for a lot of years I was struggling to see, up to my generation, I will say, the mentality was of a fighter. All the time you need to fight to improve, to be better, to be ashamed if you fail. Having a discussion with my brother that lives in UK, complaining all the time that I feel like I'm losing the connection with youngsters nowadays, that they are not so involved, that they are not so having basically this mentality of fighting for their future. And he underlined a very, very powerful message, and he said, you cannot expect from a generation to change the world, but this new generation, what they started doing, your generation, is to not be afraid to fail and stop having this fighting mentality, because fighting mentality comes with extremists in politics, sometimes stepping some lines when it comes to ethics. just because you want to show off, you want to be the best. I saw an incredible change with youngsters nowadays, being more focused on having a quality life in a quality society, and not only them being the best, because you being the best, that means the others need to somehow be below you. And I see that what European Union did is showing youngsters to see the person in front and not country, religion, and other aspects. 20 years passed, and I see youngsters that they identify as Europeans, not as a Romanian, not as a, I don't know, Christian Orthodox or Catholic or whatever, and not asking where are you from, another youngster. And I think that's powerful. That doesn't mean you need to lose your own identity, but not to see the other as an enemy. Because for a long time in history, at least in Europe, we see each other as possible enemies. And it's a beautiful thing nowadays to see France and Germany having no problem with each other, Romania, Hungary, and the examples continue. It will be very difficult, except the common jokes that you may hear, discussing with youngsters nowadays seriously. If they have a problem with Hungary, they were like, no.
But is it hard in general to involve with youngsters here in Craiova? Like invite them to go to the events of NGOs, for example? Because in Craiova actually there are a lot of NGOs, and it's all of them propose something to youngsters, but do youngsters really want to go there to communicate and to do some activities? Or nowadays with internet it's much harder to make them get out of their flats and houses. How do you see that?
I think there are two problems here. First of all, until, let's say, past 7-8 years, there were not a lot of opportunities. And then youngsters now, they are bombarded from left, right, center, not only in Craiova, but with cheap traveling, directly having a city break or going to a concert from Craiova to Paris, for example. So we need to understand that sometimes we may perceive a decrease in participation, but it's just because the offer increased and you cannot be at the same time in so many places, and that's a good thing. Second of all, and here we include our association also, that's why we decided to start this podcast and basically let you, the youngsters, to trial, fail and succeed. Most of association, they try to do activities not with youngsters in mind, not letting them decide what they want, what they are their interests. Our previous question, when it was harder, at the beginning of my work, because I was in the target group that I was addressing, the difficulty came in not knowing project management, not knowing how financial management went, what the cash flow was, stuff like that. Now I understand perfectly, and I'm mastering this aspect. But of course, I don't fall in that category. I don't have the same interest. So if you don't let youngsters to take the lead and to be comfortable to let them fail, because for sure we did the same, of course the activities will not appeal to them. The second aspect is we need to understand that if pandemic was hard for the community in general, for youngsters it was the hardest. Because while all the, let's say, adults were focusing on new strategies, going to work and like everyday life, nobody considered them. Their social life ended from one day to another in the most important period of their life. I look at my son that now he's 19 and he had the full-blown pandemic lack of social interaction. He didn't develop yet his friendships. He started high school online, and for 2 years he had only online friends. So now it's difficult to come to an activity where you don't know anybody. You don't know what it's about. So we need to understand that pandemic for youngsters had a huge negative impact when it comes to their social interaction. So it's not that they are not willing to attend, it's that they are lacking the skills they need to learn how to interact, how to make friends. Because all of these online activities during pandemic were developed by adults having no understanding of what social media is, what topics are of interest for youngsters. Even for us, the online during pandemic was just there to be there. It was not successful. Even our volunteers struggle a lot because they were lacking actual platforms to communicate among themselves. That's why during that period, TikTok, YouTube, and whatever blew, because it was a real need for youngsters to be involved in something that they were interested in.
Added to your previous questions, each period has its own challenges. For instance, in the beginning of my work, I had to face my fear about the failing to motivate the young to accompany me in this journey. Especially in a country where volunteering is often misunderstood. And as far as the COVID-19 time is concerned, my colleagues and I had to find ways to continue our work with the resources and hand, because stopping is not in our dictionary. We use technology to be able to stay in contact with everybody. Obviously, the experience is not always the same, but it exists. For example, this month we have a lot of events, a lot of projects implemented by our volunteers, ANDCTR, and of course volunteers of Explorator and other friends for a local NGO in Craiova. Because this period we celebrate European Youth Week, and in according with this we create events to bring them together to promote this topic of this year election. And of course we have more surprise for our community, and they can follow us on our social media.
Going back to activities of Asociatia Explorator, I wanted to ask what made you launch that podcast. How did you come up with the idea? Why the format of podcast interested you?
For me, everything related to this type of television, podcasts, and so on, even though I'm an avid consumer of these products, was something way too complicated. The camera settings and all this part to actually being in front of a camera, something that I personally don't like at all. That's why I'm happy I have Alin and Mirela, that all the time they are going and promoting the activities of the association in the community. But here there are several factors. I understood that with our team discussing if we don't enlarging our comfort zone, we will not be able to cater for youngsters. And here once again the collaboration came perfectly, because Ovidiu from Casa de Cultura said, oh, but we have the equipment and I know how to
make it happen.
How to make it happen from this part. And I was like, wow, amazing, then we can bring the international volunteers. And then Mirela, she's like, oh, but I will love this part of creativity and so on. So then I step in my comfort role, that of writing projects and managing it and bringing the funds. So just by speaking and involving the right person, because without this collaboration, neither Mirela herself could do it, or Ovidiu or me. And then I also understood from our friends from Sighișoara, from the association AUM, that I want to thank them for. Speaking with their coordinator, and I was like, but how involved are you? Like, do you know this and this? And she was like, no, I just let them be. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. How wrong can it go? It's not like you start from a platform of millions of viewers having a huge responsibility, and I'm like, yeah, how wrong can it be? Like, you can take down from YouTube a podcast that maybe, I don't know, doesn't follow the regulation of YouTube and so on. It's not the end of the world. So just by discussing among ourselves and wanting to increase our comfort zone, we decided to do what we are good at and just develop this platform for you, international volunteers, but also for our local youngsters that just maybe want to come and discuss a topic.
Yes, all the time I hear young people say, I want to say something, to have my voice on a platform, to everybody to see me and listen to me. And now is the time for you young people, to communicate, to have a channel that it helps you to send a message that you want to send to the others, and to collect information for podcasts, for shows, for to give information, to receive information, and to have a channel to be all the time connected. I think it's really important in this time that we are living in a digital century, and we are here for you, and this is a big step for us also.
In according with Mirela and Madalina answers, I want to add our aim is to shed light on the young people and open the doors for them so that they can flourish and soon be able to speak their minds and support the moral value of togetherness and act in freedom, but not without this regarding the other person rights.
So, what maybe changes you would like to see after launching this podcast?
What I want this podcast to bring in the community is underlining also positive examples. Because nowadays, especially because we are facing so many elections, European election, local and national, we have the tendency of focusing only on the negative part of the other person. While a lot of youngsters in our community do incredible stuff and can empower other young people. For example, Alin had incredible projects that he developed as a volunteer and received, for example, national awards for it. And not a lot of youngsters knew about this, so they can be empowered. Oh, if somebody professionally does completely different stuff, can do this, maybe I can do the same. While working with a lot of disadvantaged groups, young people with disability, I was amazed of coping mechanisms they found in a society that's not made to cater for this. And I was like, why not sharing with others, and maybe like they can apply it. So I want this to be a platform of sharing and supporting each other and underlining positive change and not focusing all the time on this victim mentality. When I discuss with peers in the community, like where it will be held, and I said Casa de Cultura Studenților, yeah, but it's an inclusion podcast and the building it's not catering for disability, and I'm like, yeah, but this is the reality, so we need to start somewhere. If we focus only on the stuff that we are lacking, then we will not do anything. So change comes from small ideas, discussing with others, starting this snowball effect.
I think, first of all, we did it. So I think it's the most important thing. We succeed to have this podcast. So for us, it's a great opportunity, a chance to develop and to grow. And starting from here, we are opening and create new opportunities for you, for us, and to, of course, discover this part that until now we didn't know a lot of things about this kind of podcast or project that involving this podcast. So we are grateful.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it was the main questions about the podcast, about the European Solidarity Corps and the associations themselves. But I have small bonus quiz questions to answer them very shortly with your recommendations. And the first question is, what do you like about Craiova?
It's the city that I grew up and that I returned after several years not living here, is the resilience of the city. The south was never seen as something beautiful since we have Transylvania. Craiova, it's an industrial city, but all the time the city managed time and time again to try to rediscover, to try to come with new solutions and new approaches. So the resilience of people.
I want to say that I love this city because I see changing spaces, changing mentality, spaces that are looking beautifully, parks, museum, theaters. We have a great festival, international Shakespeare International Festival.
Of course, I like open-minded of our people here from Craiova.
Other question is, what book can you recommend our listeners to read?
I read in this moment, but I am not sure how to translate because it's Dancing with Wolves. So it's really nice, but it's a book for ladies, I think, most of the audience.
I'm honest with you. I don't have time to read normally a book like a usually book because my friends know I am a PhD student and I have to do more research and I read more articles for my thesis to evolve, and I hope to finish this year.
We wish you best luck in this case.
But I think your honesty, it's an important point to be made, that reading, it's not only about literature, it's also about continuing reading in the fields that you want to improve. I am reading a very hard and difficult book that I recommend every Romanian to read. It's called The Penitentiary of Pitești by Virgilia Runca. It's a heavy book about the horrors of the communist period. But why I think it's important, and now it's in discussion to be translated in several languages, is the fact that we can easily blame people of not doing something when we forget that our parents or our grandparents knew to a certain degree maybe what horrific things were happening and not doing. Because nowadays in Europe we have this tendency of blaming maybe others of not doing enough or accepting a regime or a dictatorship without understanding the privilege that we even have of speaking of those issues and understanding that the other, meaning my parents, for example, or our grandparents, were not horrible human beings. We just didn't have the skills or the tools to speak up. They didn't know something different. I think it's a good reminder of how the lack of active citizenship can immediately go to a horrible situation in history, let's say.
What is the next event that will happen in Craiova and you would like to attend and also recommend others to attend?
I think we can all say the same thing. Festival Shakespeare.
Shakespeare Festival.
Yeah. So I will have an unpopular opinion. I'm waiting more for the English Village. As a rock fan, a lot of my favorite bands are coming.
I would like to thank you for all your answers and participation in the podcast, because now it's time for us to finish this episode. It was really nice to talk to you and to know more about the story and backstory about the association. I think that's all for today.
Thank you.